Cozy games suck lately. Ever since Animal Crossing New Horizons sold a ridiculous number of copies, everyone has been hopping on the cozy game train. Which is great, I love me some cozy games, but some of them aren't quite up to snuff. Why are so many of these cozy games sucking? The cozy game genre has been severely lacking games since the beginning of time. We've had a few like The Sims, Harvest Moon, and of course Animal Crossing. But then came Eric Barone. Known online as Concerned Ape, this solo indie developer enjoyed the Harvest Moon games, but he saw areas that the games could be improved on. So he got to work developing an entire farm sim all alone. And it turned out fantastic. To date, Stardew Valley has sold over 20 million copies across multiple platforms. These numbers are completely unheard of for an indie game, especially when developed by a single person. Concerned Ape's game shows developers and players that you don't have to be part of a huge studio to create something amazing and profitable. The dev did work his butt off though. You don't just make a masterpiece like Stardew Valley overnight, no matter how good you think you are at pixel art. Fast forward a few years, Animal Crossing New Horizons releases, and the pandemic starts. Everyone was home, everyone was bored, and with the Switch being so cheap compared to other consoles, the barrier to entry to play Animal Crossing was extremely low, especially for those people who are playing video games for the first time. Cozy games like New Horizons are some of the easiest games to learn. It's not a game that requires a lot of previous experience with a controller or video games in general. Your grandma can pick up a couple of Joy-Cons, press a few buttons, and successfully play. Or your dog. Panda could probably do it. Oh, never mind, she's scared of it. Zoe could probably do it. There we go. Good girl, Zozo. As a result, a perfect storm was created that allowed New Horizons to become one of the greatest selling games of all time on the Switch, selling over 40 million copies worldwide, and it also caused about 20 million new Switch console sales in 2020 alone. Everyone saw these crazy numbers. There was finally a demand for cozy games, and people wanted to capitalize on that. Let's time travel back to present day. The cozy community has exploded. There are 40 million people who are interested in these relaxing games. So why not make a game that they would want, said every developer ever. Now that we're 3 years after New Horizons release, we're getting a lot of cozy games from brand new studios and small teams, which is awesome, but also awful. You can tell some of these titles were created to just solely make a ton of money, which is fine. If you spend 3 years making something, it should be profitable. But there's no love behind some of them, no patience, no formula that makes these games, well, good. A lot of them kind of suck. Is that just because games like Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley raised the bar so high? It's hard to live up to almost perfection. The more you look at some of these cozy games and compare them to just other games in general, the more you notice a lot's missing. There's plenty of cozy out there, but these games need something more. Just having nice music isn't enough. I can just go to Lo-Fi Girl. She's always there when you need her. And she's free. Mainly, there's a lack of reward for almost no risk. Let's take a look at a half-cozy game, Cult of the Lamb. It's got a really nice aesthetic, allows you to decorate, but also has a challenging aspect of a roguelike combat mechanic, hence the half-cozy. The way you unlock decorations is by exploring and fighting your way through dungeons. As you progress, you'll unlock some items which you can decorate your area with. There's a lot of risk going through these dungeons. You have to kill all the enemies and defeat the boss, all while surviving. Death means you have to start over that dungeon run. Plus, your cult members think you're weak and not worthy of being their leader, because you're just lame. So if you fail, now you have to go through the whole dungeon all over again, and make your people like you so they don't turn against you. Games don't have to have combat to have a good risk-reward system. The risk could just be the time you're putting into the game. Is the reward from completing this goal worth the time that you have to put into it? Like the catch 100 fish in a row Nook Mile goal. Is it worth your time? It's just a few Nook Miles. You can get these by spending more time completing the easier Nook Mile Plus goals. But for some people, the reward of completing the goal is worth the risk of spending time to catch 99 fish in a row, messing up that last one, and then having to restart the entire fishing process all over again. A lot of cozy games don't have risk, which makes sense, right? They're supposed to be cozy, but we need to be rewarded somehow for our work. Why risk an hour of my time to get nothing out of it? I need to work towards something. Games in general need some type of progression, whether that's unlocking items to decorate with or completing a full-blown story. There has to be some kind of satisfaction when playing, and the story better be good. There are some cozy games that you progress through a story, but sometimes the story just isn't captivating. I don't like progressing just for the sake of progressing unless I care about the world and the characters, or I'm rewarded for exploring the world. And if the story progression isn't appealing enough, then the game is boring, and it doesn't give me a reason to keep coming back. Disney Dreamlight Valley. I swear I only go back to Disney Dreamlight Valley because of the Battle Pass, and then I just never even finished that, and then I'd stop playing, and then it's a problem. Though the latest update did add a little bit to the story, so that was nice, but it only lasted like 20 minutes. This seems to be an unfortunate trend in the cozy game genre. It feels like some developers use the word cozy as an excuse to have minimal gameplay. Sometimes this is the overall vision, like this bug catching game. Its sole purpose is just to catch bugs, which is fine if that's all you as a player want in a game, but besides completing your encyclopedia, catching bugs is the only thing to do. It was fun for the 30 minutes I played, but I got bored pretty quickly. It just wasn't for me, which makes sense because bugs really aren't my thing. They have legs and wings and yeah, I don't know, I don't like bugs. But I wanted something more out of the game. Granted, this one was just a demo, so I'm sure the full game does have a bit more, but I need something unique to keep me invested. A lot of these cozy games make players do stuff for the sake of doing stuff. Why am I playing this game? Is it just to kill time? Or do I want it to be engaging? Just because a part of a game takes a long time to complete doesn't replace the fact that you need to add content. Stuff taking a long time doesn't equal more engaging content. It just gives players more of a reason to fall out of a game. That content better be appealing, especially if it's a mechanic that requires a lot of time taken from someone's day. Players want to play games that are worth their time, not a waste of time. There are a lot of cozy games where the villager dialogue is a struggle and it takes away the immersion. I don't need someone to tell me about the current weather 20 times or tell me over and over again that it's easier to get around without thorns around anymore. Bestie, I know. I destroyed them. Villager interactions are supposed to be a fully fleshed out mechanic. I understand that writing a ton of dialogue can be a pain, especially when developers are trying to translate it into a bunch of different languages, but if there are going to be villagers and romancing, at least make me want to romance them. Like Hodari. So glad we can romance him. Games like Palia and Stardew Valley give each character their own story to discover and questlines to complete based on their lives, as well as personalized exclusive rewards that you can only get from that character. Players feel like a part of the town instead of just a player in a game. And the NPCs interact with you differently based on your relationship with them. I accidentally played Palia without headphones on, and Rat said that one line while Drew was sitting next to me.
You're into bad boys, aren't you?
Anyway, they interact with you differently. Or this game called Grave Seasons where you can accidentally marry a murderer. Talk about risk. Many cozy games completely gloss over the important mechanic that is character development. Even New Horizons. Though after playing some of these other games, New Horizons villagers, they don't seem so bad. Give us more than repetitive, pointless dialogue. Let them verbally abuse me like the GameCube Animal Crossing. At least being shut down a bit gave me something interesting to read for a second. The world isn't always sunshine and rainbows, and neither should my gameplay. Bland dialogue and stories do nothing for players, except make us complain on Twitter and talk about it in every video ever about what could be improved about Animal Crossing. Don't look at my videos. Oh, stop talking about it. I swear, this is the last one where I talk about bad dialogue. Cozy games need to do something different to set themselves apart from the dozens of other cozy games that are coming out around the same time. The amount of days that I go on Twitter and there's a post about like, oh, look at these 4 games all coming out on the same day. How am I supposed to play all 4 games? Stagger them, please. We're in a cozy boom. There's a ton of competition. I want these future games to do something that others aren't. Take A Little to the Left, for example. Definitely a cozy game. It has puzzles to solve, like a lot of games do, but it concentrates on those puzzles by creating unique experiences. Some even have multiple solutions that make you want to replay the level. There really isn't anything like A Little to the Left out there, except those flash jigsaw puzzles that you randomly play when you're bored. On top of satisfying puzzles to solve with a ton of progression rewards and feeling like the smartest person around, it also has an amazing soundtrack and incredibly satisfying sound effects. These stamps unsticking themselves? Perfect. The coin sounds? On point. This game does a lot to set itself apart from the rest of the genre. Not everything has to be Animal Crossing. We have Animal Crossing at home, we don't need more clones. And you really don't want to compete with Nintendo's Cozy. All the little details they add make their games an experience that's almost impossible to replicate. Except for Stardew Valley, I don't think wood has ever been so satisfying to chop. But sometimes there's room for improvement. Let's take Stardew Valley for example. It's a game that took heavy inspiration from the Harvest Moon series, greatly improved upon it, and now the modern Harvest Moon Story of Season games are just trying to keep up with Stardew Valley. We can't keep playing the same game over and over again. Players want to play something different. Or if it's going to be similar, it better drastically improve upon what we already have, kind of like how Stardew Valley did. But just stop making us farm. If we're farming for the sake of farming, it's the worst. You can't just add farming to any kind of game and call it a cozy game, Square Enix. I at least want a cooking minigame or something to do with the food that we harvest. Or just be farming simulator and make it only about farming. I don't need to harvest crops in every cozy game. Cozy games are a trend that everyone is hopping onto. Even games like Pokemon are trying for a more cozy experience. Gone are the days of grinding relentlessly and finding your way through David Bowie's labyrinth to avoid as many trainer battles as possible. You can essentially choose how you want to play the game, which I guess is fine, but it's just kind of like, it's just boring. I'm just gonna go back and play Pokemon Blue. But you can also give Pikachu a bath now, so that's pretty cozy, I guess. But players don't want games that just play themselves. I still need some level of tediousness to keep me interested. I don't want to avoid everything difficult in a game. Don't let me just run around the trainer. There still needs to be some type of challenge. Because the genre is such a trend, there are a bunch of games that you can clearly tell they're just trying to make a quick buck. There's no love behind the game, barely any effort, just the bare minimum to get by. I need to be completely immersed in the cozy world to fill up my internal coziness. I don't want to play a newly released game and 2 weeks later there's a paid expansion or DLC announced. Developers should take a note out of Concerned Ape's book. Give us free updates for almost 10 years. Okay, that's a bit ridiculous, but his continuously positive actions make anything other than free expansive updates seem lame and greedy. He had a vision for what Stardew was, and kept pushing out free updates after release until it got to his original vision, and then some. We've gotten so many updates for this amazing game. Most of us don't mind paying for true extra content. I'm going to bring up A Little to the Left again. But they have a great, complete game, with DLC that was released well over a year after the initial game came out. Not to mention, the base game is good, and it's a good price. $15 for hours of play and a daily puzzle that you can keep coming back to? I'm not at all salty about their fairly priced DLC that doesn't break the bank. Unlike other games that have been around for decades that somehow charge crazy money for a few pieces of furniture. Look at these are stupid. I hate it. And A Little to the Left ends. I can pop in once a day to do a daily puzzle, but it's not a game that requires a ton of daily commitment. And you aren't really missing out on anything if you decide to not play for the day. No economy to miss out on, no FOMO. While I love games that I can keep playing 5 years down the line, I'm so sick of logging into 18 games every day to do my dailies. Not everything has to go on forever. If it doesn't make sense for your game, make the game end. And if it's a game that can be played forever, the developers need to give players a reason to keep going. Do something different than the others. Don't make my daily just logging in so I can pay money for my wishes so I can maybe get this one cute character maybe that might possibly show up maybe. But we will all stop playing eventually. Animal Crossing will always have a leg up on these cozy games. With nostalgia, a huge studio, and the brilliant minds of Nintendo behind the game, it's impossible for Animal Crossing to fail. Just don't look at this one. This one never existed. The greatest cozy games come from some type of nostalgia. For many players, that's when we're at our coziest. We yearn for a world that doesn't exist for us currently. It's important that we dive into a place that we want to live in, that creates a nice community to be able to connect with others, without a pull or some type of heartache or adventure. We really don't get the full immersion of cozy. I'm happy to live in a world where cozy games exist. A select few have been a great escape, maybe too good of a distraction. But I have become more picky with the cozy games I buy. Quality over quantity, always. Life is short, don't spend it wasting time on an uncozy experience. There are too many out there that don't live up to the hype, and while I'm sure the developers have the game's best interest at heart, sometimes it doesn't always come through when playing. Games need more than just slapping together mechanics like fishing and farming and calling it a day. The cozy game bar needs to be raised, so the future of the genre is beautiful. Any games you want to recommend? Drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!